I was sent to a website recently that claimed to have questions that I, as an atheist, would struggle to answer. Let's take a look and see what kind of struggle they give me.
What caused the universe to exist?
I assume you mean what caused the expansion of the universe several billion years ago. We don't know. We have observed the properties of the universe, like the redshift of galaxies moving apart, or the cosmic background radiation found within it, and have extrapolated what those discoveries mean, and backtracked to work out what we believe the universe was like at the moments after its expansion. But we don't know what caused it to happen. However, since we don't have any evidence of any kind of intelligence behind it, we shouldn't add that to our list of probable variables.
What explains the fine-tuning of the universe?
I'm making the assumption that you're talking about why certain variables, like, say, the nuclear force, is the way it is. We don't know why the constants of the universe are the way they are. The multiverse theory could be right, in which case it makes sense that one of the universes with the conditions for life would be the one that had life develop within it. Or it could be these constants are controlled by some other naturalistic property, and they have to be this way. But again, like my previous answer, there is no evidence for any intelligent creator being as the one fiddling the dials to set up the universe the way it is. In fact, the opposite is really true. If the universe was not capable of supporting life, yet had life in it, that would be a step in the direction for evidence of an outside force directing things.
Why is the universe rational?
I'm not even sure what this question is. Rational means behavior guided by conscious reasoning, or thinking processes that employs logic. The universe doesn't think or make decisions. We, as inquisitive beings, have observed and made comments about how portions of the universe act. For example, we have observed how liquid will fill up the available space in container and have rationally designed containers to hold liquid. The universe doesn't make rational choices, but we have worked out rationally how it works, or at least part of it. Honestly, if someone has a better explanation of this question, please let me know.
How did DNA and amino acids arise?
Slowly. Oh, you wanted more? Well, when the first self-replicating molecules came about, it was a simple matter of dividing, since they were so basic. As it became more complex cells, dividing became more complex. So the information on how cells would split became encoded into the cells, making it easier for them to reproduce as complex creatures.
Where did the genetic code come from?
I just answered that. It's the same question as before. DNA is the genetic code, and as creatures became more complex, a mechanism evolved to dictate how these complex creatures reproduced.
How do irreducibly complex enzyme chains evolve?
From less complex chains. Irreducibly complex means you can't figure out how it happened, therefore God. But from an honest perspective, that's illogical. Just because we don't know, that does not mean outside intelligence is the only answer. Even if evolution was disproved, theism is not the default answer. It would simply mean we have a gap in our knowledge.
How do we account for the origin of 116 distinct language families?
As humans spread throughout the planet, they separated from other groups and lost contact. As time went by, the languages changed independent of each other. They slowly changed over time, just like how organisms have changed into many diverse animals and plant families. The different languages have branched into families and result in the diversity of language on this planet. Languages change quickly. Just go back a few hundred years, and you wouldn't be able to make yourself understood to the locals. They rapidly evolve. I am curious, now there is such widespread global communication, will the evolution of language slow down, or will they melt together, so we end up sounding like the crew of the Serenity? And, as a side note, if hundreds of different languages came about because people built a tower that was too tall it would have gotten to heaven, then the splitting of languages should have happened thousands of times, from all the skyscrapers that have been built over the last century, not to mention all the passenger planes that take off every day that go higher than any brick building possibly could.
Why did cities suddenly appear all over the world between 3000 and 1000 BC?
Well, to start off, the first city started appearing about 7500 BCE, a few millennia before your book claims the universe was created. And once cities started forming, meaning people are no longer just wandering hunter-gatherers but becoming civilized, it means their populations began to expand rapidly, with things like widespread agriculture and a better ability to work together, resulting in division of labor. This will result in the geometric increase in the number of cities because of two things. One, an increase in population will allow others to go out for whatever reason they want to create more cities. And two, the knowledge that cities, people staying in one spot, working together, has shown to work in the past, they will stick to this pattern to make more cities.
How is independent thought possible in a world ruled by chance and necessity?
Survival. Animals need to react to the stimuli around them. The better they can react, the better chance they have to survive, breed, and pass on that ability to react. Humans and some other animals have honed that ability to react into the ability to be preemptive, think about what is going to happen and plan ahead. That, in a nutshell, is what independent thought is, making sense of the world and using that to plan what action should be taken.
How do we account for self-awareness?
How do we account for it? Because a creature aware of itself and its surroundings is better equipped to survive and pass on their awareness to their descendants.
How is free will possible in a material universe?
I don't know if it is. Please note that independent thought and free will are not the same things. Our thoughts are governed by electrical and chemical impulses in the brain, which are governed by the laws of physics. So while we can come to independent thoughts, Please remember these thoughts are governed and bound ultimately by the laws of physics, so free will, the idea that we decide to do without outside interference, doesn't seem possible, since the choices we make while independent are predetermined by these laws, at least in my view. At this point, that's more of a philosophical question. I know atheists who believe in free will, and theists who don't.
How do we account for conscience?
As social creatures, we are dependent on others. So, as we want to protect ourselves, we've evolved a part of us that wants to protect others. We don't harm others because we don't want others to harm us, and we have empathy for other people, not wanting that harm that could come to us to come to them. This is pretty much the basis of any large cooperative society.
On what basis can we make moral judgments?
Personally, I make moral judgments on the basis of harm. A. Will my actions harm myself or others? B. If it will harm myself or others, will the outcome of said actions result in more good than the harm it will cause?
Why does suffering matter?
Suffering matters because people are often harmed when they are suffering. See my previous question as to why I use harm to determine what moral matters I adhere to. But sometimes suffering is necessary to reduce harm. I suffer when I pay my taxes, but those taxes, in theory, go to reduce suffering in society overall.
Why do human beings matter?
I personally think human beings matter because, well, I am one, and I have empathy for my fellow humans due to the social nature that we evolved with, because we thrived when we worked together.
Why care about justice?
Because without justice, the small fraction of the members of society who do not think the suffering of others is relevant would have no reason not to harm others. Justice doesn't always work, otherwise there would be no crime, but is currently the best thing we have to prevent people who want to harm others from doing so.
How do we account for the almost universal belief in the supernatural?
Because most people want answers to everything, and if you remember what I said before, there are things we don't know yet. For example, the creation of the universe. So many people feel their lack of understanding with the supernatural. People like that are more concerned about having any answer than having the answer be the right one.
How do we know the supernatural does not exist?
We don't, but with the utter lack of proof of anything supernatural being shown to exist, it makes it unlikely that there's anything out there that does not conform to physical laws. I am not saying that there are phenomena out there that we don't know about yet, or can't explain. But if there is something out there that we don't understand, and has been recorded and proven to exist, that defies our understanding of the laws of nature, then our understanding of the world will have to change to account for it. Like how our discoveries of the quantum realm don't mesh with our acceptance of conventional physics, it means we have to adjust our understanding of the world, not just say it was supernatural.
How can we know if there's a conscious existence after death?
We don't know for sure, but there's never been any evidence for it. And since as far as we know our consciousness is bound within the physical constraints of our brain, damage to the brain, and our consciousness and personality can change, then when there is no brain activity, it can be reasonably assumed there is no consciousness either.
What accounts for the empty tomb, resurrection appearances, and growth of the church?
The empty tomb and resurrection claims are just that, claims. There is no historical reason to believe the claims without any kind of evidence, especially extraordinary ones that defy what we know about how the world works. If a biography of Lincoln came about that said after getting shot in the head, several hours later he came to life and flew around the theater, we would conclude that it was a fabrication. I could make any number of outlandish claims, and it would be rational to be skeptical of them unless I could deliver some kind of proof. The church has thrived because people want answers, and religions have provided them. Even if they have no evidence, many people are willing to accept any answer over an honest, I don't know. So, there you go. I didn't really struggle to answer any of them. Most of the questions were of the, you can't answer, so God variety. But that does not logically follow. If we don't know, we don't know. Just throwing in an answer without any evidence stunts our intellectual growth, and we owe it to ourselves to realize what we don't know, to try to find an answer, but to admit we may never get one.